Over the last 10 years, we've learned the most about leadership from three groups: millennials, introverts, and women. Our traditional models of leadership have been extroverted middle-aged men, my people. I'm one of them, and I think they're wonderful. But thankfully, our models of leadership are much broader than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. When I think about millennials, I spend time with university students. I see some of them here today, and I mentor them, but they're increasingly mentoring me as well. We call it reverse mentoring, where they're teaching me about things like social media, and thanks to people like Anita, social business, and a concern about the environment. They're tutoring me. I've been doing some research recently, talking to CEOs about their senior teams of large companies, and how many are introverts? About 25 to 33% of senior executives, according to them, are introverts. I don't know about you, but I was surprised by that, maybe because I'm an extrovert, but I found that surprising. But it's amazing when they talk about the strengths of senior introverted executives, how powerful they are and how much value they bring to the team. So as an extrovert, I've learned a lot from introverts. But it's the third group, women, I'd like to focus on. What I've been doing for the last year or so is following around, with their permission, a number of senior women leaders. I could get in trouble otherwise. And it's been fascinating to learn from them how many women leaders lead differently than I do as a man. And it's taken my leadership, I believe, to the next level. But let me take you back first 30 years. 30 years ago, most of the women leaders, we see three up here, there were some great women leaders in the world, but largely they copied men's leadership. Why? Because most of the senior leaders were men. Therefore, they copied men, naturally enough. I remember the 80s working for IBM, and a number of the women I worked with had big padded shoulders, and they dressed in a way that they looked like men, effectively. They were hiding the fact they were women because they wanted to advance their careers. Good on them. Bad styles, but good on them for doing that. But again, thankfully, the world has changed. We see a much more interesting world with a lot of diversity out there. So we see that we should learn from one another. I mean, this is not a radical thought, that extroverts should learn from introverts. People like me should learn from quieter people. One of the key lessons I've learned from introverts is to listen more. That's a great lesson for me as a noisy extrovert. I should learn from young people. They should mentor me, and I hope they learn from me on occasion as well. I don't know if you've read Cheryl's book, Lean In. One of the points Cheryl makes is that many women doubt themselves. Whether they can do well, they can go to the next level. I reflected in my 30-year career, I never once doubted any job opportunity that came my way. Never once. That is immature, bordering on stupid. And so something I should learn from women is, as a man, I should lean back and ask for some evidence I could actually do the job. So go talk to some friends and say, hey, Anita, do you think I could do this? And get her advice. And once I got that, go full steam ahead, if they say fine. So something, as a man, I've learned to lean back and emulate women by thinking about whether I'm actually up to it, rather than just having male hubris, fully confident, I can do it. That's dumb. So when we see it, we need to learn from one another. And so that's led me to look at some of the research on women's leadership. And again, what it suggests is that many women, not all women, there's a lot of variety of women leaders as there is men, but many women leaders tend to be better at some things. Three of them particularly struck me. Collaborating, I can't say it, but I know it when I see it. Collaborating, listening, and empathy. So these are three things that women tend to be particularly good at. And what many management thinkers are arguing that these three are what is needed for leadership in today's world. What they're arguing, in effect, is that women's leadership is the future of leadership. And I think they're right. When we think about collaboration is important because we have much more global value chains than we have in the past, working with other cultures, and we often outsource large parts of our company. We need to learn to collaborate. We need to listen because the world's changing, and strategy is done not just from the top, but from boundary spanners who are out there in the real, turbulent environment we live in. Plus, the millennials honestly believe their story is as good as my story as an older person because that's what we teach them, and they believe it. They must be listened to. And empathy. I don't want to be a human resource I want to be a human being. I want to be treated with empathy by my management, and I want them to know me and care for me. And if they do, I'll go through a brick wall for them, if they care for me. I want someone with empathy to lead me, to manage me, to be with me. So these are things that we must learn about. So I've followed around a number of women leaders. 3 of them I'll just talk about today. One is a retail politician here in Montreal, another one is CEO of a small NGO, and the third one is the CEO of a big company. She's sitting over there. And what I did was follow them around. So Theodora I followed around. We had an election here in Montreal recently. I was her official agent, campaign manager. So I would take her to the neighbors, introduce her, and then turn it over to her. Spend hours listening to her, talking to citizens and voters. Then we'd have strategy meetings. Thankfully, no cigars, but we have strategy meetings. Lynn is the head of an NGO here in Montreal. I'm on her board and fellow volunteer, so I got to see her in board meetings as well as in volunteer circumstances. And then finally, the third, Zoe, is the CEO of a major company. We co-taught an MBA class this year. She flew the whole class up to Labrador City to do some consulting, and then I sat with her and her team as the students in groups of 6 presented 1 hour each, so 8 hours, to her and her executive committee. So I got to see Zoe in action up in Lab City as well as in the boardroom with her team. What I saw was what research suggests those 3 strengths I saw in spades. So when I looked at it, it helped improve me and change me as a leader, as a man. So the first one is collaboration. I ran a Chinese executive program at McGill this week. Traditionally in the past, I'd be in charge. I'd be the man. But this time we had a woman from McGill and a woman from Renmin University working with me. And one of the women I've worked with for years, and in the past I'd butt heads occasionally, in a very male fashion. I play hockey Monday nights, and we go into the corner sometimes, a bit too aggressively, to be honest. And I take that to work sometimes. But by working with these 2 women and thinking about the women I've been following around and learning from, I was more collaborative. I was easier to get along with. And we had a better program at the end. And our Chinese executives were very praising of what we had done. And I think part of it is I just leaned back. I calmed down a little bit. Hard to believe, I agree, but I did. Second one is listening. So the principal McGill came to our CEO Speaker Series last week. Wonderful opportunity to have lunch with a dozen students. And the first question out was, what are you looking, Madam Principal, for the next dean of the business school? She talked for a few minutes, but at the end it was brilliant. 15 minutes, the last quarter of an hour of the conversation, she said, what do you think? And she listened with rapt attention for 15 minutes, not interrupting, giving undivided attention. They loved it. A great example for me to learn to listen more and to really listen to people, profoundly listen to them. The final one was this need here for empathy. So I was thinking about it. I got to be more empathetic. I got to get that down. So I had an opportunity. We had 3 young people interview the principal on stage, and so it was a PhD student about 30, there was an MBA student about 28, then a 21-year-old BCom, young woman. So as she came off the stage, another woman was with me, one of our managers, had a fair criticism of her. She said, I'm going to say, go tell her. So she went up to her and told her, I could see that she felt crestfallen. After this high of this exciting opportunity, bam, you get some criticism. And I thought, how would I take that? I was empathetic. I was thinking about it. I said, man, I would be I'd be flying high like a kite. I don't want to hear negative things right then. So after lunch, the principal's leaving. I was going to walk her downstairs. I had about 10 seconds. I went up to her and I looked her in the eye and I said, that was very good. I'm very proud of you. I'm old enough to be her parents' age, so I'm like her mom or dad. And you might remember your mom and dad when you were a teenager going, I'm very proud of you. I really appreciate what you've done. And I could just see the glow. That moment, I was my best leader because I saw a need that she had. And because I ran the series, I had the authority and the position to say, you did very good. I'm very proud of you. And it meant something. And I could just feel her spirit swell. And she went home ready to go through a wall for us. But she needed that bit of empathy, something I've learned from watching those 3 women. So, man, what I'd like to ask you to do is lean back, instead of jumping in the fray, spend more time listening, watching, and learning from women leaders. Because when we think about it, what the global economy needs, women have got not all women, but many women. So when we think of the future of leadership, learning from, it's women and men who learn from women. In some ways, it's not about being a man or woman, it's about being an excellent leader. Merci beaucoup, à bientôt.